So basically what we need is you need to have a fuse version, right? You can download any right now the latest version that is available is 6.3.0. You can use anything like for I'm using 6.2.0 pre-patched. It is equivalent to 6.2.1. So what you need to do is you need to copy this zip file into some folder. Let's say I copy it into a folder called test1, and you need to extract it. Okay.
Sure. Quick question. Right now we are using 6.2.
Yeah.
If when I go on to a JBoss site, I see only the latest version. Will I be able to get the older version also on the JBoss site, or
Yeah, you can get it from the JBoss archive actually. So they will have older versions also available, so you can get it from their archive.
Oh, okay. I will see again.
By default, you will only see the latest. Yeah,
Okay.
by default, you will only see the latest version. Yes.
Yes. I didn't see in detail. I will check it.
Yeah, you can check for older versions. They download. So I just copied this, and then what you can do, we can extract it. So we should ensure that we when we are extracting fuse, it should not be very deep. We should not extract it inside a very deep folders. Otherwise, what will happen? The total file name length will be too much.
Okay.
So, for example, I'm just trying to extract it here. So it takes a minute or so to extract it. And then where you extract JBoss fuse main folder, that path is called here like your Karaf home or fuse home. Okay. So it is the place where from where all your directories will be referred. So it will have some bin folder, it will have some etc folder, it will have some system folder. So all these folders will be referred from this location, that is called now Karaf home or fuse home. So this will be one variable that will be internally used, Karaf home, and using Karaf home you can refer any configuration also. So it's Karaf home is like an environment variable inside fuse, so you can use it for your referring any folder location from this. Suppose that you want to keep some property file inside fuse, and you don't know the path, right, where the installation will be done. So you can always refer Karaf_home. So it will give you the folder location till the main Karaf installation folder. Okay. Okay. Once the extraction is over, we can delete this. We can just remove this zip file. Then this location, the location where we have extracted fuse, this location is your Karaf home. Okay, so here you see I have little longer file path, but ideally we should have like CHI, JBoss fuse this, so that any intermediate file name inside this folder will not be too long, because Windows have some restriction on the absolute file name length. Like it cannot allow more than 255 characters. So sometimes some problem happens in accessing any jar or package. So we should not be extracting it inside too deep. Okay. So once you do the extraction, then there are some folders like the bin. Inside the bin, all the batch files will be there, or all these scripts will be there to run Fuse. So then there will be some folder called etc. So etc folder will have all the required configurations. You can also copy your property files or configuration files here. Then it will have another useful folder called system. So system is like a repository for Fuse. So as we know, it is dependency management is done by Maven. For dependency management, Maven needs to download some jars or other things from internet. But when you are running Fuse, all the possible dependencies are already bundled by Fuse, and they keep it inside a system folder. So if you see the size of system folder, it will be one of the biggest folders in Fuse. Why it is biggest? Because it carries all the dependencies, all the required jars in a local mode. So when Fuse runs, it doesn't go to internet and download anything from there. So it already have a copy available locally, and it is taken as a local repository. Okay. So if I open system, you will see a lot of folder locations here, and inside each folder, again there will be some more files or folders coming up. Okay. So here Fuse keeps all his Maven dependency. So for example, now Fuse 3.6.3.0 is there. So till now, what are the required dependencies with Fuse or third party? They are available inside the system folder. Let's say tomorrow some new dependency comes, they will not be inside Fuse. So when Fuse, if you use that feature inside your project, then Fuse has to connect to internet to download that feature, or you have to provide some option to Fuse to download that feature. So that is managed by some property file. We'll see that also. Okay. So now what we have to do is we have extracted it. So this is my Fuse home, and then we can now see what is the process to do the installation of Fuse as a service. So what is the first step is? First step is we need to extract the binary, and then once extraction is done, we need to start Fuse in console mode. So for running the installing the Windows service, first we need to run Fuse in console mode. So we can open a command prompt, and most probably we should ensure that we are, while running the command prompt, we are the administrator. So you can run the command console as the administrator. You have to go to the bin folder. Once you go to the bin folder, there will be a fuse.batch file. So we can run that file. So once you run Fuse batch file, it will try to load the Fuse in console mode. So normally, if we don't install as Windows service, then we go and double click the fuse.batch file and it runs Fuse for us. Or you can go to Win console and then run fuse.batch from there. So when you're running for the first time fuse.bat, it takes like a minute or so, because it will be initializing all the files, loading the required dependencies. So meanwhile it is starting. Another thing that I want to quickly discuss is JBoss Fuse. Basically JBoss Fuse is the enterprise service bus, right? So as an enterprise service bus, it is responsible for providing you a framework where you can write your integration logic, where you can deploy your application, and where you can monitor the application, and where you can do this troubleshooting, live debugging, and other things. So Fuse contains a bundle of some open source technology. So Apache Camel is there. So Apache Camel is used for routing and mediation. Then it needs to run your application, right? So in Apache Camel, you will write your routes or you will develop your projects, and then you need to run the application, right? How you will run the application. So for that, it has a runtime container called Apache Karaf. So it is the container in which your application will be deployed. And then you need some third-party dependencies, jars, right, to run your application. And then you need, if you are working with any message broker, then you need to have support for message broker. So by default, it is using Apache ActiveMQ as the message broker. We can connect to any message broker, but by default, the Fuse contains Apache ActiveMQ. So these are some of the things. If you want to use web services, then it has support for Apache CXF. So all those things are inside the Fuse. So now when we start Fuse, it means that it has to load all the dependencies and all the required modules to work, right? It means that it has to load a lot of external features or external modules. So in terms of Fuse, the deployment is done in a unit called feature, right? So when you say I'm going to deploy an application, it means that you are adding some feature to the Fuse. So all the modules in Fuse are like called features. So features are like equivalent to your modules, and Fuse is based on Fuse follows this feature-based deployment. So if you develop an application and you want to test it, you need to deploy this feature, this application as a feature. We'll see in our session how we create the feature and deploy. Features are like a deployment descriptor, so in shortcut you could say. But for every testing purpose, we don't have to create a feature and do the deployment. So Fuse has a hot deployment support also. So when once you extract the folder Fuse in a folder, then if you go to the folder structure, you will find a folder called deploy. So deploy is like a folder where you can do the hot deployment. So if you copy any application here, it will be hot deployed. So for testing purpose, normally in the development phase, you always do hot deployment because you don't want to create a feature and then go and do the deployment. So you copy any jar file here or any XML route here, it will be deployed automatically if there is no problem with the code. So that is also one way of seeing that whether your routes are working properly or not, or if there is any issue with your application. So we copy the folder, or we copy the jar or XML file inside deploy folder, and it will be hot deployed. So, but in a production environment, you will not be doing that. Mostly, we are doing feature-based deployment. Yes.
Quick question, Shiva. You mentioned camel, carafe, and these all things. From, where the blueprint comes into picture? Is it in the routing and mediation?
Yes, yes. So coming to your question, like now you have camel to do the routing and mediation. So camel means it's an integration engine kind of thing, where you can write your business logic and do the do some steps like validation, transformation, and some sort of enterprise integration pattern integration to achieve some goal. So how you do that? So there are multiple ways to write that logic. So blueprint is one way through which you can write your routes, camel routes. So you can write your camel route. So normally there is something called DSL, domain specific language. So camel supports this DSL, multiple types of DSL through which you can write your integration logic. So when I say I'm a Java developer, it means that I write my code in Java, right? When somebody says that he is a .NET developer, it means he writes his code in .NET. So if you say that I'm a Camel developer, like what it means, still we are Java developer, but Camel uses a specific language, domain specific language, to do the coding part or configuration part. So this domain specific language is not a single language. You can use multiple options. If you want, you can write your route in Java. That is called Java-like language. It is called Java DSL. Okay. Java DSL. If you familiar with Spring and if you find XML easy, then you can use Spring DSL to write your routes. Similarly, now we are using JBoss views on a OSG Karaf, right? Apache Karaf. So Apache Karaf is a container, and internally it is called a OSGI container. So OSGI is a open service gateway initiative. It's like a standard or specification that tells that how your deployment should be done, how your dependencies should be resolved, and things like that. So JBoss Fuse is running inside this OSGI container. Apache Karaf is the container for that, and Apache Camel, basically when you write anything in Camel, it runs into this Karaf container. So Apache Camel has no direct dependency on Apache Karaf. Those are two independent things.
Let's take a step back, right? I mean, so we need to understand in terms of okay, so there is something called as Karaf. So when you say container, what is a container? Like, is it like a JVM? Is it like a server or something? Is that what it is? You're deploying all YAML code or class into that?
It is a runtime container. It's like something on top of JVM.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, if we explain that terms, I think it will be good, right? So because we need to understand, let's say people are Java or .NET guys, if they know certain things, if they are learning some new stuff like YAML, right? If we can correlate it, then we will be able to understand. I mean, something like, yesterday we were talking about, group ID, right? Group ID is something like a package, right? If we can do that kind of thing, because see, when you say Karaf, what is Karaf? I mean, what is container, right? Not everyone might know that actually.
Okay, no problem. So normally how we deploy an application, if you have worked in Java, you will be using Apache Tomcat or a JBoss or some other server, right? Basically, Apache Karaf is equivalent to your Apache Tomcat.
So it is a server.
It's a server, or in terms of Fuse, we call it a runtime container. So basically, we have operating system. Under the operating system, we have JVM, right? And under the JVM, we have Apache Karaf. Okay. It is your runtime. It is your equivalent to your runtime server, or we call it runtime container. Okay. So when you deploy your application, you don't deploy directly on the JVM. You deploy inside this Karaf container, which is equal to your server. Okay. So Java has different type of approach to do the deployment. So some servers are called J2E servers, right? Like Apache Tomcat is a J2E server, right? Java 2 Enterprise Edition, J2E, right? Like Apache Tomcat, it is your server. It is based on a specification called J2E, Java 2 Enterprise Edition. So similarly, there is another way of doing deployment. It is called OSGI. So OSGI, it is called for OSGI, Apache Karaf is the server. Okay.
Okay. Then in the Karaf directly we deploy our jars, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So whatever it is, whatever we want to have it, we will deploy in that. So when you say features are equal to modules, then that means features is equal to the jars basically. Each module we put it in the form of jar, right?
So for a module, you can have more than one jar also. So, but all of those jars can be part of one feature. So when you're working on, say, DB util, you may not have only one jar. You can have multiple jars also, right? In most cases, you will have a single jar to deploy your application, but there are some cases where you have multiple jars also to run your application because you want to segregate the code into separate things. So you can have multiple jars also to run your code. So when we do the deployment, we deploy all of them as one entity. So that is called one feature. It can contain one jar, it can contain multiple jars, it can contain some helping jars, or it can contain some property file, configuration files. So all of them is called one feature as a unit of work. Okay.
Okay. Then is
So
there something which is equivalent to a particular jar, like, or if you want to cover it later, that's fine. I'm just asking.
Yeah, we have a session on feature. We will see how features are defined.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
But you should basically we should say that when we say feature, it is like a module, and module means it can have more than one dependency, more than one jar, more than one property file, like. But all of them collectively called one feature. Okay. So in Fuse we use this OSGI model of deployment, and for that model we have a Apache Karab as the container, or Apache Karab as the server. Okay. So now I will write my application in Camel and then I will deploy it in Karaf. We don't have to explicitly deploy in Karaf because Fuse is built on top of Karaf only. So whenever you do the deployment in Fuse, it means you are doing the deployment in Karaf. Why I'm saying this? Because Apache Karaf comes as an independent server also. Apache Camel comes as an independent runtime also. But Fuse is combining all of them together and creating one environment. Okay. So if you go and download Apache Karab separately, that also is possible. You can go and download Apache Camel separately, that is also possible. And you can do your development there. But in terms of Fuse, all of them are combined together and one environment has been created. So you will write your application in Camel and then you will deploy your application in Karab. Then you will say that, oh, I am deploying in Fuse. Okay. Fuse is like a wrapper around all those things. So now, how I write my application in Fuse? You will use this domain-specific language or DSL. So you can write your code in Java-like language. That is called Java DSL. It is not exactly Java, but it looks like Java. You can write your code in Spring DSL. It looks like your Spring configuration. Similarly, when Apache Camel was created, it was not intended to run only on Fuse, right? Because Apache Camel was created before Fuse. So it's like almost 10 years of existence. So Apache Camel you can run in multiple ways. So you can run Apache Camel independently. It has a small runtime that deploys directly on the JVM. You can run Apache Camel inside in a server like Tomcat, or you can run Apache Camel in a ESB like Fuse. So there are multiple ways of running Camel. In our case, we are running Camel inside Fuse. But since Apache Camel is platform independent or server independent, it gives you a way through which you can write your routes in a platform independent way. So that's why it has a Java DSL, it has a Spring DSL. It also provides another DSL called Groovy. It is like a Groovy scripting language, and it has a Scala DSL. So many other languages are supported. So now, when we come to Fuse, Fuse runs on OSGI. So when the other track on OSGI was getting developed, for running the camel routes on OSGI in an efficient way, they developed another DSL called Blueprint. Okay. So Blueprint is another DSL, domain-specific language, which can only run in OSGI containers.
So out of these four, which one is like mostly used by the clients? Is it Blueprint or the Spring?
Spring is like more popular because Blueprint is little recent and OSGI is little recent. So Spring is more popular actually.
Because our
So what
client
is the advantage of having spring over blueprint is, suppose that today you are running your application in JBoss views and you have written your routes in Spring DSL. So it will work fine in JBoss views because Fuse supports Spring. Tomorrow, let's say there is some problem with Fuse licensing issue, other things, and your client decides to go back to J2E container like Apache Tomcat. So with minimum changes, we can still run our Spring DSL into Apache Tomcat also instead of Fuse, because Apache Tomcat also supports Spring, and we can run the camel out there also written in Spring DSL. But if you have developed your application in Blueprint DSL and you are going to non-OSGI server, then that route will not run because Karaf only has support for Blueprint. Camel, if you go to Tomcat, it will not support Blueprint. Okay, so that is one disadvantage. But what is the advantage of Blueprint over Spring? Definitely there is the advantage, right? Then only Blueprint was created. We would have done our routing in Spring only. So what is the advantage is? Blueprint is dependent on OSGI. It runs on OSGI containers only. It cannot run in non-OSGI container. So OSGI, apart from providing you a runtime container, OSGI also provides you some administrative services through which you can access the files, or you can monitor some services, or you can monitor some packet features. So these services can be directly used in Blueprint with very less dependency injection. So you can integrate Blueprint with some of the extra services of OSGI in a very quick way. So you want to create some, you want to watch some files, or you want to auto deploy some properties. So those things can be done in a very small configuration using Blueprint. Same thing for doing in Spring DSL, you need to write some dependency injection. Okay.
So these administrative services are not provided in any other specifications like J2E and other, because they also have their own admin console, right?
Yeah. So these are, since you are running in Apache Karaf, they have their own administrative services for watching the file, or for reloading the modules. They have their own services. Those are admin services because you will not use them in a day-to-day application. Only if you have a requirement that you have to auto reload yourself, or you have to auto watch some services or files, then only you will be using them. Okay. So in our samples, we'll be mostly going with the Spring DSL because it is common and easy to understand. And so, then, but we'll also see one example of Java DSL and example of Blueprint DSL.
Because if we come to the coding level, how much they each differ from Spring to Blueprint? Like there will be like 80% same standards, or
yes. Only thing is, see, all the features of Camel will be same in any DSL. So whether you want to use any component or enterprise EIP pattern or any any other feature of Camel, they will be same in all the DSL. Spring and Blueprint DSL will be like 80% same. Only some syntax differ. So some syntax have different way to write in Blueprint, and some have different way to write in Spring.
okay. Because our client is using the Blueprint DSL.
Yeah, that is okay. You will not find much difference in Spring and Blueprint.
Okay.
What happens? Blueprint uses some Blueprint. When you use Blueprint, it will have some configuration settings or validation settings which will be different from the Spring. So okay. In case of Blueprint, you will be using different accessories to validate your file. In case of Spring, some other accessories will be used. But okay. If you see the camera examples, if you go for any camera example component example, So you will see that they will have given the example in both Spring and Blueprint. So if you have to search anything, you will not find any issue in searching. Okay.
Okay.
So we were talking about this fuse. So now when we run fuse, what we did right now, we started running fuse in batch command mode, and when we run this fuse, what happens? Fuse has a lot of dependencies and modules or features which it is carrying, right? So when you start fuse, let's say fuse has 100 modules or 100 features. So it will not start of 100, right? Because in a day-to-day integration, you don't need all of them. Even though fuse is a big jar, a big installation zip file, the runtime footprint is very less because it is using these features, and it will only load the required features to do the basic integration. So, for example, I have a requirement to read from a file and then send to a JMS queue. So it is a basic requirement, and I don't need any hi-fi features or any hi-fi component for that. So these are the basic things, and whenever fuse is loading, it will load the basic components of Camel. Those components are called Camel core components. Okay. So in Camel there are different level of components. So some components are called Camel core. So Camel core is like a basic set of components which you will be using in your daily integration work. And then they have a specific component for particular integration. For example, you want to connect to social media. Then there are some components which will do the integration with Twitter or Facebook or anything else. If you want to do some integration with any cloud, for example, you want to connect with AWS. So Camel has some components which will connect to AWS. So like that, there are some specific work that you want to do, plus there are some generic work. So whenever Camel is running inside Fuse, it will load all its core component as part of Fuse startup. So you can do your basic work or integration, and still the footprint of your server will be less because you are not loading all the 100 features of the server. So it has a basic set of features, it loads that, and if you need any extra feature, when you identify that I need integration with AWS, then you can go and enable those features in Fuse. So that's why I said initially Camel Fuse is using a feature-based deployment. It will load the initial set of features initially, and then if you need more features, you can go and enable them one by one. So either you can do it manually or you can change in configuration to start it. Okay, so we'll see that how it is done. So I started Fuse now. So it has loaded Fuse, and it has loaded Fuse in a very basic mode. So here I can do the normal integration, and I can run my normal integration routes here. Okay. So once we start Fuse in console, next what we have to do is we need to I want to now install this Fuse as a Windows service. Why I want to install it as a Windows service? Because if it is running as a service, then it can run in background also. If you have running in batch mode or console mode, when the moment you log off from the server, this batch will also get closed. So your integration will stop. So we should be installing this as a Windows service. So for installing this Fuse as Windows service, we need to install a feature called wrapper. So I'm not sure if you have worked on Java Service Wrapper anytime earlier.
No. No issue.
Okay. So basically, Java Service Wrapper is a third-party application, and using Java Service Wrapper, you can convert any Java application as a Windows service. So if you have a standalone Java application and you want to convert that into a Windows service, you use this application third-party tool called Java Service Wrapper. It's a very popular tool to convert a thin client into a Windows service. So Fuse is also using this wrapper. So wrapper is a third-party dependency, right? So it means that Fuse needs to bundle that inside the repositories. So and that third-party dependency is called as a new feature. It is called wrapper feature. So wrapper feature will not be available to you by default when you start Fuse, because for running a integration in Fuse, you don't need wrapper. Wrapper is the only extra thing when you want to run Fuse as a Windows service, right? So by default, wrapper will not be available to you, but it is available inside Fuse in inactive mode. You can activate it. So for activating any feature which is not available by default, we need to install that feature. So for installing the feature, we need to run a command called features:install. So it is a manual way of doing it. So once you say features:install and give the name of the feature, if the module is available in Fuse, it will install that module. Okay. So wrapper is like a module or feature. I want to install that feature now. So I can run the command features:install wrapper. So if I copy paste this command here and go back to console. So once I run this command on console, it will try to install wrapper feature. Okay. So now, if the installation is successful, you get an empty line. It means the installation is successful. If you don't get an empty line, it means there is something wrong. Okay. Suppose that if I say feature install blah blah, it will throw me an error saying that there is no feature available called blah blah. So if you install a feature, if it is empty line coming after it, it means the feature is installed successfully. So after this wrapper feature is installed, what we need to do is then we can install Windows service. So how do you check whether the feature is installed or not? So to double check that the feature is installed or not, we can list all the available features in Fuse. So for getting the list of all the available features, there is a command called features:install. Sorry, features:list. It didn't copy. So these commands we'll see in one of the sessions. So these commands are useful commands. So once we start with our one or two deployment in Camel, we'll have one session on understanding some of the commands provided by Fuse. So now I run this command features:list. So it will give me the list of all the features, but I am only interested to know the feature called wrapper. So I did a graph. So using this, I can see any feature starting with wrapper. So here, if you see, you are having a wrapper which is selected, and it is say installed first line. Installed 2.4.0 Red Hat 6200.133 wrapper. So this is what we installed. So once this wrapper is available, then it means you can run some commands to install your Fuse as Windows service. It's like a self installation. So for creating a service in Fuse, you need to run a command wrapper:install. Now, until now we are doing feature install. So feature install means I installed a feature called wrapper. And now wrapper is available, then I can use that module. So wrapper is a module. Now I have installed it, so now I can use it. So for doing the installation, first I need to create a service. So for creating the service, this is the command. So this command is called wrapper:install. So wrapper:install means it will install it will create your service. Then you have to pass some parameter. When you create a Windows service, what is the name of the service? Then you have to tell what is the display name of the service. So -n is the name of the service, -d is the display name of the service, -D is the description of the service. Okay. There could be some more options, but we are not more interested in that. So if you run this command, it will create a service for you. It will create Fuse as a service for you. Okay. So if I copy this, so if I go to Windows Service Manager, and if I search for this service called test1, I want to create Windows Fuse as a test1 service. So right now,
so what was that capital D? Sorry, small d was the display name. What is the capital D?
Display name, description. Yes, so suppose that if you can see my screen, yeah. This is the display name. Audio service is the display name. Okay. If you right click on the service and go to the properties, you will see service name. Service name can be different, and the display name can be different, and there is a description. So we are providing -n, -small d, -capital D. Okay.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Understood. Understood.
So right now I am trying to create a service called test1. I have a service called test0, but I don't have a service called test1. So once I run this command to create the service, then what it will do, it will run some internal steps in wrapper, and it will create the required configuration and other things for my Windows service. Okay. So now my service has been created. Okay. So if I go back here, sorry. Now my service has been created, right? So service has been created, but still it will not be available in the services list of the services because it needs to be installed. So service has been just created. So for installing the service, you need to come out of the Fuse console. So in the Fuse console, you create the service and then you come out of the console and then install it manually, because services installation and uninstallation is a Windows job, not the Fuse job. Okay, so you can create services manually, right? Or you can install the services manually on the normal console or itself. So from the Fuse, we create the service and then we log out, come out of Fuse. So for coming out of the Fuse console, you should always type this command log out. So when you say log out, it will close the session and other things. So now I am on the bin folder. You should be on the bin folder, and then we can install the service. So for installing the service, we have to run this command called name of the service -batch dot and space install. Okay, so I created a service called test1. So inside the bin folder, there will be batch file created called test1 service dot batch. So whatever is your service name, based on service name, batch file will be created. Okay, so suppose that you give your service name like anything like your name, then it will create a file called pankaj-service.batch or rajesh-service.batch. So depending on the name of the service, whatever you have given, it will be inside the bin folder of Fuse. So I have given a name like test1. So it will create a batch file called test1-service.batch. So I need to install this batch file in the Windows console. So I will copy this command and then I will go back to Windows console. So when I run this command, Windows will install this service. So you'll see it will say wrapper test1 installed. So when you go back now to your services manager, and then if you refresh, you will see a new service has been created called test1. Okay, so now you can see test1. So if I right click on this and go to properties, I can see this is the service name, this is the display name, and this is the description that I have given. So based on your requirement, you can change your service name and display name and the description and other things. Okay. So now you can start your service. So for starting the service, you can right click here and say start, or you can go to console and start with the DOS commands also. So whatever option you prefer, you can use. Okay, any question till now?
Yeah, one question, Shiva. So if we start a JBoss server like this, that means we don't need to start the server in the studio. Does that mean is that man?
Developer studio is different, right? It is an Eclipse ID.
Sorry, your voice is breaking.
What I'm saying is JBoss Developer Studio is an ID. It is not your JBoss Fuse server, right?
Yes, it's not Fuse server, but I was doing some practice myself, like so we create a server on the studio, is it IDE, and
That is for your local thing. You can
okay.
start a server.
Okay.
So see what happened there also, you have to give the path of installation, right?
Yes.
So it means that if you start, so what you can do, you install Fuse and you create a service and start that service. And in your developer studio, you create the path to same server. So there could be possibility that some of the ports which is trying to use may not be available to you because it is running as the Windows service also. So in that case, we should stop the Windows service and run only through the developer studio.
Okay.
Because you are referring to the same installation. One installation is running as a service, other installation you are trying to start as a console.
Okay.
But this will not happen in production because production you will not be using your developer studio to do anything. So in production your service will be running only as a Windows service.
Okay.
Even third option is that you can run fuse.batch. In that case also you will have some problem because when the Eclipse tries to create the server, it will also conflict with the port which is already running as fuse.batch. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So now we have installed the application and we can start the service. And if you want later that you don't want this service, then you can uninstall. So for uninstalling, what you need to do, for first you need to stop the service and then you can run this command service name -remove, then it will be removed. Okay. So if you don't want the service for some reason, you can go and remove the service and then you can delete the Fuse home or Karaf home to do the cleanup. Suppose that I did the installation by mistake, I don't need this. So I can do this cleanup steps. Okay. So now there are some useful files which we'll go through quickly. I have mentioned here some of the files. These files contain some basic information about the configuration. So first of all, if you go to your JBoss home, there you will find a folder like bin. Inside the bin, you will have all the batch files. So once you install as a service and other thing, you will not normally refer the batch bin folder. Then you will find a folder called deploy. Here we do the hot deployment. You copy any jar here, it will be hot deployed. And then we have a data folder. Inside the data folder, whenever you fuse, initially this folder will be empty. But the moment you start fuse, all the required temporary files or logs will be copied here. So if you want to see the log of fuse, then you can go to data folder. Inside the log, you can see two logs. One is the fuse log and another the wrapper log. So if you install fuse as a service, wrapper service, you will see the wrapper log. If you don't, otherwise you will see the fuse log. So fuse.log is the application logs. So inside the fuse log, your fuse will be logging information. Plus, if you have any other application, you can also log it here. Okay. Then there will be another useful folder called AMQ. AMQ is your active MQ. This is the default message broker. So if you are running fuse along with the default message broker, then this AMQ folder will be created. Inside that, there will be a folder called KahaDB. So KahaDB is the default storage location of the messages. So it uses a file-based database. So inside that, you will find some files where the messages are stored. Okay. Then you will find a folder called etc. Inside the etc folder, you will find a lot of properties file and XML and configuration files. So this etc folder is very useful because through this you can control the customization of Fuse. For example, Fuse runs on a default HTTP port, or it runs on a default TCP port, or it runs on a default RMX or RMI or JMX port. So in one environment, suppose that in my development environment, I want to use one port. In my UAT environment, I want to use another port. In my production, I want to use another port. So different port. So all those things you can control through the properties here. So, so we'll go through some of those useful properties. First useful property is user.property. Inside the etc folder you will find it. So inside the user.property you will see Fuse you can connect. Fuse provides a console, right? So when we were here it is the console. Right? This is the console provided by Fuse. So you can connect to this console remotely also. And for connecting to this console remotely, you need to have a username and password. Then only you can connect. Otherwise, you have to always log into the server and connect to this console. So Fuse basically runs an SSH server internally, secured server host, and it runs a SSH server, and through which it allows you access to connecting to the Fuse. So you can define the users who will have some privileges, like you can define users with only you can go and see how many applications are running, or you can define a user who can go and see how many applications are running, plus it can start stop any application. Plus you can also define a user who can go and see start stop plus deploy application. So based on the type of user, you can define them. So if you go to user.property in Fuse, so here you will see that they are providing some, by default there is no user. So they are providing some last line, if you see, it is commented. So first admin is the username, and then after that password, and then this is the role. These are the roles. It follows this RBAC, role-based access control. So Fuse has a role-based access control. So you can define users which different role. So I want to create an admin user, then they give a possibility of super user, that is admin. You must have one admin super user who can create another users. So all these things will be defined in this user.property file. Okay. Next useful set of file is your system.properties. Inside the system.property, we have the settings for HTTP port, TCP port, strong port, and things like that. So if you want to change your, by default, Fuse run on 8181 is the port. It means that if you deploy any web service, it will be available on 8181. Okay. So if you want to change your web services port, then you have to go and update in the system.property. Similarly, there is another property called org.ops.jpax.url.maven.cfg. So this is a big file name, but it is very useful. So inside this file name, what happens? It has a list of Maven repositories. Initially, what we discussed is the Fuse uses properties, features to start any application, and those features are like jar files, right? List of a group of jar files. So from where Fuse gets those jar files, Fuse has a default offline repository, which is your system folder, and then suppose that tomorrow you want to use a new feature which is not available in Fuse, then Fuse has to download it from somewhere. So if you see this file, content of this file, MBN CFG. Here we have a list of repositories. So if you see this, these are the list of repository, Maven repositories. So from there, Fuse can download any new dependency. Okay. So these are some of them are Nexus Maven repository, some of them are Spring repository from Spring source, some of them are repository from Fuse itself. So these are the default set of repository. If you give a new feature, if it is not able to find, it will go and download from here. Also, it means that you need to have an internet connection to get it, right? So if you don't, in production, we don't want to connect to internet and download something. So in order to do that, you can give your company repository path here. You can delete all of them, and you can give your company repository here. So Fuse will download from there. Okay. Any question on this?
No questions, but I think I have to leave. This is Pankaj.
Okay, you have to leave now?
Yeah. 7 o'clock I had a hard stop.
Okay. Fine. So what I will do, I will share this file so you can go through this in the notes and other thing. And if you have any question, you can let me know. We can discuss in next class. Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Question, Pankaj, sorry.
Yeah.
So how you want to have the classes, like 5 classes a week or every day you want to have a class?
So it depends on you. Whatever you are comfortable, I can join.
Only Thursdays, Rajesh. I was thinking Thursdays one day if we skip, right? Is it okay for you? I just wanted to
Thinking
ask you.
Fridays and Saturdays because weekend is it? I'm thinking
I mean,
Fridays.
we start with 4 days first a week, and we can continue for 5 days in the Saturday and Sunday is what I was thinking. Because Thursday it is like very tough for me actually. A lot of things are there. My son's classes and my classes and this and that. I have to go to temple now, and
Okay.
certain things I can't skip.
Okay. That's okay. Thursday, I mean, if we skip Thursday, I'm okay. How about Saturday? Sunday I will be available. How about Friday, Saturday? You want to have class on Fridays and Saturdays also? Or?
I was thinking 4 days a week for now. Then later part, right? We can add Saturday also. What do you say?
Sunday to Wednesday?
Yeah, Sunday night also we can have, right? Sunday night maybe.
I will be able.
So maybe like Sunday night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday.
Oh, you want to have on Friday too? Okay. Yeah, Friday's a little bit tough for me. That's why.
Okay. That will be a gap. I mean, if you have a problem, then that's fine.
Yeah, you thought initially 4 days, is it? Let's do Sunday to Wednesday.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shiva, are you okay with that?
Hello. Hello, Rajesh.
Shiva.
Yeah, okay. We will do.
Yeah, I just want to check with the other Shiva, the trainer.
Okay, guys. Just decide and let me know. Okay, I have to leave.
Okay.
Shiva. Hello.
Hello, Shiva, just offline mode. I will call him and I will ask him.
Yeah. So I just want to know, like, tomorrow we want to have a session, or again we want to meet on Sunday.
Okay. You want class again on Sunday?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Friday, Saturday, we'd like to skip Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to Wednesday, 4 days.
Okay, sir, fine. I will ask him.
Yeah.
Okay, sir, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.